Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Practice with Julia. I'm Julia, and I'll be your host today. If you're new here, I'm really happy you're watching. On this channel, we share a new English learning lesson every day to help you improve your English step by step, slowly, clearly, and naturally. In today's lesson, we're going to do something very helpful for your fluency. We're going to practice intermediate English through real daily life situations. That means you won't just listen. You'll actually think, write, and speak along with me. So before we continue, I recommend keeping a pen and a notebook close to you, because throughout this lesson, I will ask you to listen carefully. Write short answers, and repeat useful sentences. This kind of active practice is one of the best ways to improve your English naturally. During this lesson, we will explore common daily life situations, things like talking about your morning routine, describing your plans, explaining your opinions, asking and answering everyday questions, and reacting naturally in conversations. You'll hear natural English sentences. You'll practice understanding the meaning. And then you'll try to create your own responses. This method helps your brain become more comfortable with English, and little by little, speaking becomes easier and more natural. Sometimes I will give you a sentence and ask you to repeat it. Sometimes I will ask you to complete a sentence. And sometimes I will give you a small situation and ask you to imagine what you would say. Don't worry if you need a few seconds to think. That's completely normal. Learning a language is not about being perfect. It's about practicing again and again until the words start coming naturally. So take a comfortable breath, relax your mind, prepare your notebook, and let's begin our intermediate English practice together. Now imagine a very simple situation from daily life. You wake up in the morning and someone asks you a very common question. How is your day going so far? This is a question you might hear at work, at school, from a friend, or even from a neighbor. And even though the question is simple, many English learners feel unsure about how to answer naturally. For example, a beginner might say something very short like, "It is good," or "My day is fine." And that's okay. But intermediate English speakers usually add a little more information. Let me show you a more natural example. You could say something like, "My day is going pretty well so far. I woke up early. I had some coffee, and now I'm getting ready for work." Notice how the answer is still simple, but it sounds more natural because it includes a small story about the morning. Now I'd like you to practice with me. Imagine you are answering that question right now. Take a moment and think about your day. Even if your day has just started, you could say something like, "My day is going well so far. I woke up a little late, but I had a good breakfast and now I'm studying English." Or maybe your answer could be something like, "My day is going pretty smoothly. I've already finished some work, and now I'm taking some time to practice English." Take a moment now and try to say your own answer out loud. Think about your real day and describe it in 1 or 2 sentences. Pause for a moment and speak. Good. That's exactly the kind of small practice that builds confidence. Now let's explore another common situation. Imagine you are meeting a friend after a long time, maybe after a few months, And the first thing they ask you is, "What have you been doing lately?" This question is very common in English conversations, and it gives you a chance to talk about your recent life. A simple answer might be, "I have been busy with work." But we can expand that answer to make it sound more natural and interesting. For example, "I've been pretty busy lately. I started a new project at work. And I've also been trying to improve my English in my free time." Or maybe your life looks different. Maybe you could say, "I've been focusing a lot on my studies recently, and in the evenings I usually relax by watching movies or listening to English lessons." Now it's your turn again. Think about your life during the last few weeks. What have you been doing recently? Try to create a short answer in English, maybe 2 sentences. Take a moment and say it out loud. Great. Practicing small personal answers like this helps you prepare for real conversations, because many English conversations start with these simple life questions. Now let's move into another everyday situation. Imagine you are talking to someone about your daily routine, and they ask you, "What do you usually do after work or after school?" This question gives you a chance to talk about habits. And habits are a great way to practice intermediate English because they often use natural sentence patterns. For example, you might say, "After work, I usually go home, cook something simple, and then relax for a while." Or maybe, "After school, I normally review my notes, finish my homework, and then watch something in English to practice listening." Notice something important here. When we describe routines, we often connect several actions in one sentence. For example, "I go home, make dinner, and then watch a movie." This pattern makes your English sound smoother and more natural. Now try your own version. Think about your real routine. What do you usually do in the evening? Try to describe it in English, maybe 2 or 3 actions in one sentence. Take a moment and say it aloud. Excellent. Every time you describe your real life in English, your brain becomes more comfortable using the language naturally. Now let's try a slightly different kind of practice. I'm going to give you a short situation, and I want you to imagine how you would respond in English. Here is the situation. You are talking with a friend, and they say, "I feel really tired today." How could you respond? There are many natural answers. You could say something supportive like, "Yeah, I understand. Today has been a long day." Or maybe you should take a short break and relax for a while. Or even something simple like, "I feel the same. Today has been pretty exhausting." Now imagine you are in that conversation. What would you say? Take a moment and respond out loud. Good. Responding to situations like this helps you practice real conversational reactions. Now let's continue building your fluency with another useful daily life topic, talking about plans. In everyday conversations, people often ask questions like, "What are you doing this weekend?" Or, "Do you have any plans for tomorrow?" These questions are very common, and they give you a chance to talk about future activities. For example, you could say, "This weekend I'm planning to relax a little, maybe watch a movie, and spend some time practicing English." Or perhaps, Tomorrow, I need to finish some work in the morning. And in the evening, I'm meeting a friend for dinner. Notice how natural English answers often combine 2 or 3 small plans together. This makes your response feel more conversational and less robotic. Now, I want you to try the same thing. Imagine someone asks you, "What are your plans for tomorrow?" Think about your real plans, or create a simple imaginary plan. Then answer in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment and say your answer out loud. Very nice. That kind of practice helps your brain organize English thoughts more smoothly. Now let's take a moment to focus on something important for intermediate learners. Expanding simple sentences. Many learners start with short sentences like, "I like coffee." That sentence is perfectly correct, but we can easily make it richer and more natural. For example, "I really like coffee in the morning because it helps me wake up and start the day with more energy." See the difference? Instead of just giving a short statement, we added a reason, and that reason made the sentence more interesting. Now try this exercise with me. I will give you a short sentence, and you try to expand it. Here is the sentence. "I enjoy learning English." Now add a reason and maybe an example. For instance, "I enjoy learning English because it helps me communicate with people from different countries and understand more content online." Now try your own version. Say a longer sentence using that idea, take your time, and speak it out loud. Excellent work. This small habit of expanding sentences is one of the best ways to move from beginner English to intermediate English. Now let's continue our practice with another common conversation moment. Expressing opinions. Sometimes someone might ask you, "What do you think about learning English every day?" You could answer with something thoughtful, like, "I think practicing English every day is very helpful, even if it's just a few minutes, because consistency makes a big difference." Or maybe, "In my opinion, daily practice is important because it helps you remember vocabulary and become more comfortable speaking." Now imagine someone asks you that question. What do you think about practicing English every day? Pause for a moment and express your opinion in English. Good. Sharing opinions is an important skill in intermediate conversations. As you continue practicing like this, your confidence grows, your sentences become longer, and your thoughts begin to flow more naturally in English. And remember, fluency doesn't happen in one day. It grows slowly through consistent practice, sentence by sentence, conversation by conversation. So keep listening, keep speaking, and keep practicing with me, because we're going to continue exploring more daily life conversations, more useful sentence patterns, and more real English practice together. Now, let's continue our intermediate English practice by thinking about another very common moment in daily life. Imagine you are talking with a coworker, a classmate, or even a neighbor, and they ask you a simple question. How was your morning? This is a very natural question in English conversations, and it gives you a chance to describe small details from your day. Instead of answering with only one word like good or busy, intermediate English speakers usually explain a little more. For example, someone might say, "My morning was pretty good. I woke up early, made some coffee, Owen spent a little time reading before starting work. Notice how the speaker adds a short sequence of actions. Wake up, make coffee, read a little. These small details make your English sound more natural and conversational. Now try to imagine your own morning. Maybe your morning started quietly. Maybe it was a little rushed, or maybe it was relaxing. You might say something like, "My morning was a little busy. I woke up a bit late, quickly got ready, and then started studying English." Or perhaps your morning was calmer, and you could say, "My morning was quite peaceful. I woke up early, had breakfast, and listened to some English practice before starting my day." Take a moment now. Think about your real morning and describe it in 2 or 3 sentences. Speak slowly and let your thoughts come naturally. When you practice describing real moments from your life, your brain starts connecting English words with real experiences, and that makes learning much stronger. This is why daily life topics are so powerful for language learning, because you already understand the situation. You only need to learn how to express it in English. Let's move into another everyday situation that happens very often. Imagine someone asks you, "Did you do anything interesting today?" This question is very common in casual conversations, and it gives you the opportunity to share something small about your day. Even if your day felt normal, you can still create a natural answer. For example, you might say, "Nothing very exciting happened today, but I spent some time practicing English and organizing my schedule for the week." Or maybe, "Today was pretty normal. I worked on a few tasks, talked with a friend, and then relaxed for a while in the evening." Notice something important here. Even when the day is ordinary, people often describe 2 or 3 small actions. This creates a fuller answer and makes the conversation feel more natural. Now it's your turn to practice again. Imagine someone just asked you, "Did you do anything interesting today?" Think about your answer. Maybe something small like studying, working, exercising, or talking with someone. Now say your answer out loud, slowly and clearly. Great. Every time you describe your own experiences like this, you are training your brain to build sentences more easily. And over time, this becomes automatic. Now let's look at another situation that many learners experience when speaking English. Talking about things you enjoy doing. Someone might ask you, "What do you like to do in your free time?" This question appears very often in conversations, especially when people are getting to know each other. A simple answer might be, "I like watching movies." But intermediate English speakers usually expand their answer a little. For example, "In my free time, I like watching movies and listening to English lessons because it helps me relax and learn at the same time." Or maybe, "I usually spend my free time reading, listening to music, or going for a short walk to clear my mind." Listen carefully to how these answers flow. The speaker starts with the main activity and then adds 1 or 2 more details. This makes the sentence feel smoother and more expressive. Now try your own version. Think about your real free time activities. Maybe you enjoy watching videos, studying, exercising, cooking, or talking with friends. Now describe your free time in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. And imagine you are talking with a friend. Excellent. Small personal topics like free time are extremely useful for improving your English because they appear in everyday conversations everywhere in the world. Now let's practice another important skill for intermediate English, explaining reasons. When you explain why you do something, your sentences become more meaningful and expressive. For example, instead of saying, "I like studying English," you can say, "I like studying English because it allows me to communicate with people from different countries." Or maybe, "I enjoy learning English because it opens many opportunities for travel, work, and communication." Adding reasons makes your English sound more thoughtful and complete. Now let's practice together. I will give you a simple idea, and you will expand it with a reason. Here is the idea. I enjoy practicing English. Now try to continue the sentence with a reason. For example, I enjoy practicing English because every day I learn something new and it makes me feel more confident. Now create your own version. Speak slowly and add a personal reason. Very good. This type of practice trains your brain to think more deeply in English instead of translating short phrases. Let's continue with another daily life situation. Imagine you are meeting someone after work or after school, and they ask you, "How do you usually relax after a long day?" People answer this question in many different ways. For example, someone might say, "After a long day, I usually make some tea, sit down for a while, and watch something relaxing." Another person might say, "When I finish my work, I like going for a walk because it helps clear my mind." Notice again how these answers include small actions and feelings. Make tea, watch something, go for a walk, clear the mind. These details make your English feel natural and human. Now think about your own way of relaxing. What do you usually do after a long day? Maybe you listen to music, talk with friends, watch videos, or simply rest. Take a moment and describe your relaxing routine in English. Speak slowly and clearly. Very nice. You're building the habit of describing real-life experiences, and that is exactly how fluency develops. Now let's imagine another small situation. You are talking with a friend about learning English, and they ask you, "What is the most difficult part of learning English for you?" This question is very common among language learners, and it encourages you to share your personal experience. For example, someone might say, "The most difficult part for me is speaking quickly, because sometimes I know the words, but it takes time for me to organize them." Another learner might say, "For me, listening can be challenging, especially when native speakers talk very fast." Both answers are natural and honest. Now, I want you to answer the same question. Think about your own experience learning English. What feels most challenging for you right now? Maybe it's vocabulary, maybe pronunciation, maybe listening, or maybe speaking confidently. Take a moment and explain your answer in 2 sentences. Speak clearly and take your time. Excellent. Being able to explain challenges is also an important part of communication. Now let's practice something slightly different. Storytelling in small pieces. This is another great exercise for intermediate learners. Imagine you are telling a friend about something simple that happened recently, maybe yesterday or a few days ago. For example, you could say, "Yesterday evening, I decided to study English for a while, so I watched a short lesson and practiced repeating the sentences. After that, I felt more confident speaking." Notice how the story includes a beginning, an action, and a result. Now try creating your own small story. Think about something simple that happened recently. Maybe you studied, cooked something, watched a movie, or talked with someone. Now describe that moment in 3 sentences. Take a moment, think about it, and say it out loud. Great work. Storytelling practice is very powerful because it trains you to organize ideas in English. As you continue practicing like this, something interesting begins to happen. At first, you may need time to think, but slowly your brain starts forming sentences faster and more naturally. That is the real goal of intermediate English practice. Not perfection, but comfort. Comfort with expressing your thoughts, your experiences, and your ideas. And remember, every small sentence you speak is progress, even if it feels simple. Every attempt builds confidence. So keep practicing with patience. Keep listening carefully, and keep speaking whenever you have the chance, because the more you use English in real-life situations, the more natural it becomes. In the next part of this lesson, we will continue exploring more everyday conversations, more natural responses, and more practice situations that help you think and speak in English more smoothly. Now let's continue building your confidence with another everyday situation that happens very often in real conversations. Imagine you are meeting someone you know, maybe a coworker, a friend, or a classmate, and they ask you a very simple question. What are you working on these days? This question is extremely common because people are usually curious about what others are doing in their lives. It could be about work, studies, hobbies, or personal goals. Instead of answering with only a short phrase like, "I'm studying," intermediate English speakers usually add more information to make the conversation smoother. For example, someone might say, "These days, I'm focusing a lot on improving my English. I've been listening to lessons, practicing speaking, and trying to use new vocabulary every day." Notice how the answer describes several actions: listening, practicing, learning vocabulary. This kind of answer sounds more natural and expressive. Now it's your turn to imagine the same question. Someone asks you, "What are you working on these days?" Maybe you are studying. Maybe you are working. Maybe you are learning a new skill. Think about your real life and answer in 2 or 3 sentences. Take your time and say your answer out loud. Good. That kind of speaking practice is very important because it helps you organize your thoughts in English. Let's move into another very natural moment that happens in conversations. Talking about plans for the future. People often ask questions like, "What would you like to do in the future?" Or, "What are you hoping to achieve this year?" These questions allow you to express goals and dreams, which makes conversations more meaningful. For example, someone might say, "In the future, I would like to travel more and communicate with people from different cultures. That's one of the reasons I'm learning English." Another person might say, "This year, I'm hoping to improve my speaking confidence and use English more comfortably in conversations." Notice how both answers express a goal and also explain the motivation behind it. Now imagine someone asks you, "What is one thing you hope to improve this year?" Think carefully for a moment. Maybe your answer is related to language learning, work, personal growth, or health. Try answering with 2 sentences. For example, "This year, I hope to improve my English speaking skills. I want to practice more often so I can express my thoughts more easily." Now create your own version. Speak clearly and give yourself time to think. Great. Time you express your ideas about the future, you strengthen your ability to communicate more deeply in English. Now let's explore another situation that often appears in everyday conversations, sharing opinions about habits. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you prefer studying in the morning or at night?" This is a very common kind of question because people often compare habits and routines. Someone might answer, "I prefer studying in the morning because my mind feels fresh and focused." Another person might say, "I usually study at night because it's quieter and I can concentrate better." Notice how each answer includes both a preference and a reason. Now think about your own preference. Do you prefer studying in the morning, in the afternoon, or late at night? Take a moment and explain your answer in English. Speak slowly and now include a reason. Excellent. When you combine opinions with reasons, your English becomes much richer and clearer. Now let's practice describing everyday environments. Imagine someone asks you, "What kind of place do you like to study in?" Some people prefer quiet places. Others enjoy a little background noise. For example, someone might say, "I like studying in a quiet place where I can concentrate without distractions." Another person might say, "I actually enjoy studying in a cafe because the atmosphere helps me feel motivated." Now think about your own ideal study environment. Maybe you like a quiet room, a desk near a window, or a comfortable chair with soft music. Try to describe your favorite study place in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment and speak your answer. Very good. Describing places is another key skill for intermediate learners. Now let's move to a different kind of practice, reacting to everyday problems. Because in real life, conversations often involve small challenges or inconveniences. Imagine a friend says, "I stayed up too late last night and now I feel exhausted." How could you respond? You might say something supportive like, "That happens sometimes. Maybe you should get some rest later today." Or maybe, "Yeah, I know that feeling. Sometimes staying up late makes the next day really difficult." Now imagine you are in that conversation. What would you say? Take a moment and respond out loud. Good. Learning how to react naturally is an important step toward real conversational fluency. Now let's continue practicing another useful skill, describing experiences. Imagine someone asks you, "Have you learned anything interesting recently?" This question gives you the opportunity to talk about something new you discovered. For example, someone might answer, "Recently, I learned a new English expression that people use in everyday conversations, and it helped me understand movies better." Another person might say, "I recently learned that practicing a language a little every day can make a huge difference over time." Now think about your own learning. Have you learned something new recently? Maybe a new word, a new idea, or a new habit. Describe it in English using 2 sentences. Take your time and say your answer aloud. Excellent. This type of reflection strengthens your ability to explain ideas clearly. Now let's try another small storytelling exercise. Imagine you are telling someone about a relaxing moment you had recently. For example, "One evening last week, I decided to take a break from my work. So I made some tea, sat by the window, and listened to a calm English lesson. It helped me relax and focus at the same time." This kind of simple story feels natural and easy to understand. Now try creating your own short story about a relaxing moment. Maybe you listened to music, took a walk, watched something interesting, or studied quietly. Describe the moment in 3 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about the situation and speak your story. Very good. Storytelling like this helps you practice connecting ideas smoothly. Now let's look at another everyday conversation situation, expressing gratitude. Imagine someone helps you with something. Maybe they explain something clearly, give you advice, or assist you with a task. A natural response could be, "Thank you. I really appreciate your help. That explanation made things much clearer." Or you might say, "Thanks a lot. That was very helpful." Now imagine someone helped you solve a small problem. How would you thank them in English? Take a moment and say your response aloud. Excellent. Expressing gratitude politely is an important part of natural communication. Now let's practice another skill, giving simple advice. Imagine a friend says, "I want to improve my English, but I don't know where to start. What advice could you give?" You might say, "A good way to start is by practicing a little every day. Even 10 minutes can help." Or maybe, "You could try listening to English lessons regularly and repeating the sentences aloud." Now imagine you are giving advice to that friend. Take a moment and explain your suggestion in 2 sentences. Very nice. Giving advice helps you practice expressing helpful ideas clearly. As you continue doing exercises like these, your English becomes more flexible. You start learning not only words, but also how to use those words in real situations. And this is exactly what intermediate practice is meant to develop: the ability to communicate naturally about everyday experiences. So keep listening carefully, keep repeating sentences, and keep expressing your own thoughts, because little by little, your confidence will grow. Your sentences will become smoother, and speaking English will start to feel more comfortable and natural. And remember, fluency grows through consistent practice. One conversation, one sentence, and one idea at a time. We will continue exploring more real-life conversation situations, more useful expressions, and more speaking. Practice that helps you build stronger English skills. Step by step. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by focusing on another common part of daily conversations, talking about routines and habits, because routines are something everyone has, and they give us many opportunities to practice natural English sentences. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, "What do you usually do when you wake up?" At first, this question may seem very basic, but it actually gives you many chances to build longer sentences. Instead of answering with only one short action like "I drink coffee," you can describe a small sequence of your morning routine. For example, someone might say, "When I wake up, the first thing I usually do is check the time and stretch for a moment. Then I get up, wash my face, bow, and prepare some coffee before starting my day." Notice how this answer moves step by step through the morning. Stretch, wash face, make coffee, start the day. This kind of structure makes your speech clear and natural. Now it's your turn to imagine that someone asked you the same question. What do you usually do when you wake up? Think about your real morning routine. Maybe you check your phone, brush your teeth, make tea, or take a shower. Now describe your routine in 2 or 3 sentences. Take your time and speak your answer out loud. Good. When you describe routines, your brain practices organizing actions in order, and this is a very important skill for speaking fluently. Let's continue with another routine question that appears very often. How do you usually start your day? This question is similar to the previous one, but it focuses more on how your day begins emotionally or mentally. Someone might answer, "I usually start my day quietly. I like to sit for a few minutes, drink coffee, and think about what I need to do during the day." Another person might say, "I start my day by listening to something in English. It helps me wake up and practice at the same time." Now think about your own mornings again. How do you usually begin your day? Is it calm, busy, or energetic? Try to describe it in English. Use 2 or 3 sentences and explain how your day normally begins. Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Very good. These small descriptions help build natural speaking rhythm. Now let's explore another everyday topic, talking about meals, because food is something people talk about very often in conversations. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you usually eat for breakfast?" A simple answer might be, "I eat eggs and bread." But an intermediate answer can sound more detailed and natural. For example, for breakfast, I usually eat something simple, maybe eggs, toast, and a cup of coffee, because I like starting the day with a light meal. Or perhaps, I usually have something quick for breakfast, like fruit or yogurt, especially when I'm in a hurry. Notice how the speaker adds small details about habits and preferences. Now think about your own breakfast routine. What do you usually eat or drink in the morning? Describe it in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Excellent. Food conversations are very common, so practicing them is very helpful for real-life communication. Now let's move into another common situation, talking about your day at work or school. Imagine someone asks you, "What was the most interesting part of your day today?" This question encourages you to reflect on your day and choose a small moment to describe. For example, someone might say, "The most interesting part of my day was learning a new idea during my English practice. It made me think about language in a different way." Another person might say, "The most interesting moment today was when I had a conversation with a friend. We talked about travel and shared some funny stories." Now think about your own day. Even if nothing extraordinary happened, you can still describe a small moment. Maybe you learned something, talked with someone, solved a problem, or discovered a new idea. Take a moment and explain that moment in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer aloud. Great. Reflecting on daily experiences helps you practice speaking in a more thoughtful way. Now let's practice another important communication skill. Describing feelings. Imagine someone asks you, "How have you been feeling lately?" This question is very common among friends or colleagues, and it invites you to talk about your emotions or general mood. Someone might answer, "Lately, I've been feeling quite motivated. I've been focusing on learning new things and improving my English." Another person might say, "Recently, I've been a little tired because I've had a lot of work, but I'm still trying to practice English every day." Now think about your own feelings recently. How have you been feeling during the past few days or weeks? Try to describe your feelings honestly in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and express your thoughts clearly. Very good. Talking about feelings makes conversations more personal and meaningful. Now let's continue with another daily life topic. Talking about learning habits. Imagine someone asks you, "How do you usually practice English?" This is a question many learners I hear when discussing language learning. Someone might answer, "I usually practice English by listening to lessons and repeating the sentences aloud. It helps me improve my pronunciation." Another learner might say, "I practice by reading short articles and trying to use new vocabulary in my own sentences." Now think about your own learning habits. How do you usually practice English? Maybe you listen to lessons, watch videos, read, or speak with friends. Take a moment and explain your practice routine in English. Speak your answer clearly. Excellent. Describing learning habits reinforces your motivation and confidence. Now let's try a small imagination exercise, because imagination can also help improve your speaking skills. Imagine you have a free day with no responsibilities, no work, no classes, and no schedule. How would you spend that day? For example, someone might say, "If I had a completely free day, I would start by having a slow breakfast. Then I would go for a walk and spend some time reading or listening to music." Another person might say, "On a free day, I would probably relax, watch a movie, and practice English for a while." Now imagine your perfect free day. What activities would you choose? Describe that day in 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer aloud. Great. Exercises like this help you practice future and conditional ideas in English. Now let's practice reacting to good news. Imagine a friend tells you, "I finally achieved my goal of improving my English speaking skills." How could you respond? You might say, That's wonderful news. I'm really happy for you. Or, that's great. All your hard work really paid off. Now imagine you are responding to that friend. Take a moment and say your reaction aloud. Very good. Learning how to respond naturally makes conversations feel more comfortable and friendly. Now let's continue with another storytelling exercise. Think about a small achievement. Do you experienced recently? Maybe you understood a difficult sentence, learned new vocabulary, finished a lesson, or spoke English more confidently. You could say something like, "Yesterday, I realized I could understand more English than before. When I listened to a lesson, I recognized many words and expressions." Now create your own small achievement story. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your story aloud. Excellent. Celebrating small progress is very important for language learners. As you continue practicing conversations like these, something very important begins to happen. Your brain slowly becomes more comfortable thinking in English. At first, you may pause often, searching for the right words. But with regular practice, those words begin to appear more quickly. That is how fluency develops, through repeated exposure, repeated speaking, and repeated practice. So keep listening carefully. Keep responding aloud, and keep expressing your own ideas in English. Because every sentence you speak brings you one step closer to confident communication. And as we continue this lesson together, we will explore even more real-life situations, more conversational responses, and more speaking practice that will help you become a stronger English communicator. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by exploring another everyday conversation topic, talking about the places we spend time in. Because in daily life, people often describe locations, their homes, their neighborhoods, their favorite cafes, parks, or even their workplaces. These conversations help us explain environments and experiences in a natural way. Imagine someone asks you a simple question. What is your neighborhood like? This question gives you the opportunity to describe the place where you live, the atmosphere, the people, and the surroundings. For example, someone might say, "My neighborhood is fairly quiet and peaceful. There are a few small shops nearby and a park where people like to walk in the evening." Another person might say, "My neighborhood is quite busy. There are many restaurants and stores, and there is always a lot of activity during the day." Notice how both answers describe the environment and add small details that help the listener imagine the place. Now think about your own neighborhood. What kind of place is it? Is it quiet or lively, modern or traditional, crowded or calm? Take a moment and describe your neighborhood in 2 or 3 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly, and imagine you are explaining it to someone who has never visited your city. Very good. Describing places helps you develop richer vocabulary and stronger communication skills. Let's continue with another similar question that often appears in conversations. What is your favorite place to relax? People often share personal spaces where they feel comfortable. Someone might say, "My favorite place to relax is a quiet park near my house. I enjoy sitting there, listening to music and watching people walk by." Another person might say, I like relaxing in my room with a cup of tea and a good book. It helps me clear my mind after a long day. Now think about your own favorite relaxing place. Maybe it's your room, a cafe, a park, or somewhere outdoors. Describe that place in 2 sentences. Explain why you enjoy spending time there. Pause for a moment, think about the place, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. When you describe places and feelings together, your English becomes more expressive and natural. Now let's practice another situation that happens frequently in everyday life. Asking for and giving recommendations. Imagine a friend asks you, "Can you recommend something interesting to do in your city?" This question often appears when people are traveling or visiting new places. Someone might answer, "If you visit my city, I would recommend going to the Central Park. It's a beautiful place where you can relax and enjoy the scenery." Another person might say, "One thing I would recommend is trying the local food. There are many small restaurants that serve amazing traditional dishes." Now imagine someone visiting your city. What would you recommend they do? Think about one interesting activity or place and explain it in 2 sentences. Take a moment and say your recommendation aloud. Great. Giving recommendations is a valuable communication skill, and it helps conversations become more engaging. Now let's move into another common conversation topic, describing personal preferences. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you prefer spending time indoors or outdoors?" This question invites you to share your lifestyle and habits. Someone might say, I'll prefer spending time indoors because I enjoy reading, watching movies, and studying." Another person might say, "I prefer being outdoors. I like walking, exploring new places, and enjoying fresh air." Now think about your own preference. Do you enjoy indoor activities, outdoor activities, or maybe a mix of both? Explain your preference in 2 sentences and include a reason. Pause for a moment and say your answer out loud. Very good. Expressing preferences helps you participate in natural conversations easily. Now let's continue with another useful topic, describing hobbies and interests. Imagine someone asks you, "What is a hobby you really enjoy?" For example, someone might say, "One hobby I really enjoy is photography. I like capturing small moments and beautiful scenes." Another person might say, "I enjoy cooking because it allows me to be creative and try." Now think about your own hobbies. Maybe you enjoy reading, sports, music, traveling, or learning new skills. Describe one hobby in 2 or 3 sentences. Explain why it interests you. Take a moment, think about it, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Talking about hobbies is a great way to make conversations friendly and interesting. Now let's practice another everyday situation, describing how you spend weekends. People often ask questions like, "What do you usually do on weekends?" Someone might say, "On weekends, I like to relax and spend time with friends. Sometimes we watch movies or go out for a walk." Another person might say, "My weekends are usually quiet. I like reading, practicing English, and preparing for the week ahead." Now think about your typical weekend. What activities do you usually do? Describe your weekend routine in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about your weekend and speak your answer clearly. Very nice. Describing routines and habits strengthens your ability to communicate naturally. Now let's practice responding to invitations. Imagine a friend asks you, "Would you like to join me for coffee this weekend?" There are many natural ways to respond. You might say, "That sounds great. I'd love to join you." Or if you are busy, you might say, "That sounds nice, but I already have plans this weekend, maybe another time." Now imagine someone invited you to an activity. How would you respond politely? Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Good. Responding politely is an essential part of everyday communication. Now let's try another small storytelling exercise. Think about a memorable moment from a recent weekend. Maybe you spent time with friends, relaxed at home, or learned something new. For example, last weekend I decided to spend some time studying English. I listened to a long lesson and practiced repeating sentences. After that, I felt more confident understanding spoken English. Now try creating your own small story about a recent weekend moment. Describe the experience in 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And speak your story. Excellent. Storytelling helps you practice connecting ideas and events smoothly. Now let's practice another useful conversational skill. Asking follow-up questions. When someone tells you something interesting, you can continue the conversation by asking a related question. For example, if someone says, "I started learning a new language recently," you might ask, "That sounds interesting. What language are you learning?" Or, "What made you decide to learn that language?" Now imagine someone tells you, "I started a new hobby recently." What question could you ask to continue the conversation? Take a moment, think about it, and say your question aloud. Very good. Asking follow-up questions keeps conversations flowing naturally. As you continue practicing conversations like these, your English gradually becomes more flexible. You begin to describe places, explain preferences, share experiences, and respond to others more comfortably. At first, speaking might feel slow, but with repeated practice, your sentences will start forming more easily and your confidence will grow. Remember, fluency is not about speaking perfectly. It is about communicating ideas clearly and naturally. So keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep exploring new ways to express your thoughts in English. Because every conversation, every sentence, and every practice moment brings you closer to becoming a confident English speaker. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue practicing more everyday conversations, more natural expressions, and more speaking exercises that help your English grow step by step. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by focusing on another very common topic in everyday conversations, talking about time and how we manage our daily schedules. People often discuss how busy they are, how they organize their day, and how they balance work, study, and relaxation. These conversations are extremely useful because they happen in almost every environment, with friends, coworkers, classmates, or even strangers. Imagine someone asks you a simple question. How do you usually organize your day? At first, this question may seem easy, but it actually allows you to practice explaining routines, priorities, and habits. Instead of giving a short answer like, I work and study, intermediate speakers usually describe their schedule more clearly. For example, someone might say, I usually start my day by checking my schedule and deciding what tasks I need to complete. Then I focus on the most important work first, and later in the day, I spend some time studying English. Another person might answer, I try to organize my day in a simple way. I do my main work in the morning, take a short break in the afternoon, and spend the evening relaxing or learning something new. Notice how both answers explain the order of activities: morning, afternoon, evening. This kind of structure helps listeners easily understand your daily routine. Now think about your own schedule. How do you usually organize your day? Do you plan things carefully, or do you prefer a more flexible routine? Take a moment to describe your typical day in 2 or 3 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. And imagine you are explaining your routine to a friend. Excellent. Describing daily schedules helps you build stronger speaking habits because these topics appear in many real conversations. Now let's explore another situation that happens often. Talking about being busy. Sometimes people say things like, I've been really busy lately. When someone says this, they usually explain what has been keeping them busy. For example, someone might say, I've been really busy these days because I'm working on several projects and trying to learn new skills. Another person might say, lately I've been quite busy studying and preparing for my exams, so I haven't had much free time. Now imagine someone asks you, have you been busy lately? Think about your own situation. Maybe you've been studying, working, or focusing on a personal goal. Describe your recent schedule in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and say your answer aloud. Great. This kind of reflection helps you practice talking about recent experiences. Now let's move to another common conversation topic, talking about relaxing after work or study. After a long day, people often share how they unwind and recharge. Imagine someone asks you, what do you usually do when you need to relax? Someone might answer, when I need to relax, I usually listen to music or watch something light. It helps me clear my mind. Another person might say, I like going for a walk in the evening. It helps me feel calm after a busy day. Now think about your own relaxation habits. What helps you relax when you feel tired or stressed? Describe your relaxation routine in 2 sentences. Speak clearly and naturally. Very good. Talking about relaxation is an important part of everyday conversations because people often share ways to reduce stress. Now let's continue with another useful situation, talking about productivity. Sometimes people discuss how they stay focused while working or studying. Imagine someone asks you, how do you stay focused when you are studying? Someone might answer, I try to remove distractions and study in a quiet place. It helps me concentrate. Wow, better. Another person might say, I usually study in short sessions with small breaks in between. That helps me stay focused longer. Now think about your own study habits. How do you stay focused when you are learning something? Explain your method in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Explaining habits and strategies helps improve your communication skills. Now let's practice describing a small challenge, because conversations often include small difficulties or problems. Imagine someone asks you, "What is one challenge you face when learning English?" Someone might say, "One challenge for me is remembering new vocabulary. Sometimes I understand the words, but I forget them later." Another learner might say, "For me, the challenge is speaking confidently. Sometimes I hesitate because I want my sentences to be correct." Now think about your own learning experience. What challenge do you sometimes face when practicing English? Describe it in 2 sentences. Take your time and say your answer aloud. Very good. Expressing challenges honestly is part of real communication. Now let's move to another everyday conversation topic, talking about motivation. Imagine someone asks you, "What motivates you to keep learning English?" Someone might answer, "I'm motivated because I want to communicate with people from different countries." Another person might say, "Learning English motivates me because it gives me access to more knowledge and opportunities." Now think about your own motivation. Why do you want to improve your English? Explain your reason in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment and say your answer clearly. Excellent. When you express your motivation, your learning becomes more meaningful. Now let's practice another small storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you felt proud of your English progress. Maybe you understood a conversation, spoke confidently, or learned many new words. For example, someone might say, "Last week I noticed that I could understand more English during a lesson. I recognized many phrases that I had learned before." Now try creating your own short story about a moment of progress. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Take a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Great. Celebrating small progress helps build confidence and motivation. Now let's practice another conversational situation, reacting to someone's plan. Imagine a friend tells you, "I'm planning to practice English every day this month." You could respond by saying, "That sounds like a great plan. Practicing daily will definitely help you improve." Or you might say, "That's a smart idea. Consistency is really important when learning a language." Now imagine your friend shared that plan with you. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your response aloud. Very good. Learning to respond naturally helps you feel more comfortable during conversations. Now let's try another imagination exercise. Imagine you are meeting a new friend who is also learning English, and they ask you, "What advice would you give to someone who wants to improve their English speaking?" Someone might answer, "I would suggest practicing a little every day and not being afraid to make mistakes." Another person might say, "A good idea is to listen to English regularly and repeat sentences out loud." Now imagine, you are giving advice to that learner. Explain your suggestion in 2 sentences. Pause, think about your advice, and say it aloud. Excellent. Giving advice helps strengthen your ability to express helpful ideas clearly. As we continue practicing conversations like these, you may notice something important. Your sentences are becoming longer and more natural. At the beginning of learning a language, many learners use very short answers. But intermediate learners begin connecting ideas, explaining reasons, and sharing experiences more comfortably. That is exactly what we are practicing here, step by step, sentence by sentence. So keep listening carefully, keep speaking out loud, and keep practicing with patience, because every small effort you make today will slowly build your confidence tomorrow. And as we continue this lesson together, I will explore even more everyday conversations, more natural expressions, and more speaking practice that will help your English grow stronger and smoother. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by exploring another very natural topic that appears in many conversations: talking about learning experiences and personal growth. People often talk about things they are trying to improve, skills they want to develop, and lessons they learn along the way. These conversations help you express deeper ideas and explain your thoughts more clearly. Imagine someone asks you a thoughtful question like, "What is something new you have learned recently?" This question allows you to share a recent discovery or improvement in your life. For example, someone might say, "Recently, I learned that practicing English for a short time every day is more effective than studying for many hours only once a week." Another person might say, "I recently learned a new way to remember vocabulary by creating simple sentences with each word." Notice how both answers explain a discovery and also describe how it helps the learner. Now think about something new you have learned recently. It could be related to English, work, or daily life. Take a moment and describe your experience in 2 sentences. Speak clearly and naturally. Excellent. Sharing learning experiences makes conversations more interesting and meaningful. Now let's move to another common topic: talking about personal improvement. Imagine someone asks you, "What skill would you like to improve in the future?" Someone might answer, I would like to improve my English speaking skills so I can communicate more confidently with people from different countries." Another person might say, "In the future, I want to become better at managing my time and staying focused on my goals." Now think about your own personal growth. What skill would you like to improve? Describe your goal in 2 sentences and explain why it matters to you. Pause for a moment. Think about your goal and say your answer aloud. Very good. Talking about goals helps you practice expressing intentions and motivation. Now let's explore another everyday situation: talking about experiences that made you happy. Imagine someone asks you, "What is something that made you smile recently?" This question invites you to share a small positive moment from your life. Someone might say, "Recently, I had a conversation with a friend and we laughed a lot. It made my day feel lighter." Another person might say, "Yesterday, I understood a difficult English sentence that I couldn't understand before, and that made me feel proud." Now think about a small moment that made you happy recently. Describe that moment in 2 sentences. Take a moment and speak your answer aloud. Excellent. Sharing positive experiences creates warm and friendly conversations. Now let's practice another useful skill. Describing learning habits. Imagine someone asks you, "How do you usually remember new English words?" Someone might answer, "I try to write new words in a notebook and review them regularly." Another person might say, "I remember vocabulary better when I use the words in real sentences." Now think about your own method. How do you remember new words? Explain your strategy in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about your learning habit and say your answer clearly. Great. Explaining learning methods helps you share ideas and learn from others. Now let's try another small imagination exercise. Imagine you are talking with a friend about language learning, and they ask you, "What advice would you give to someone who feels nervous speaking English?" Someone might answer, "I would tell them not to worry about mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process." Another person might say, "The best advice is to practice speaking regularly, even if the sentences are simple." Now imagine you are giving advice to that friend. Think about what you would say and explain your advice in 2 sentences. Take your time and speak your answer aloud. Very good. Giving encouragement is an important part of communication. Now let's continue with another storytelling exercise. Think about a time when learning English felt difficult, but you continued practicing anyway. For example, someone might say, "At the beginning, understanding spoken English was very hard for me, but I kept listening to lessons every day, and slowly it became easier." Now try telling your own short story about a challenge in learning English. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about the experience and speak your story aloud. Excellent. Talking about challenges helps you explain your journey and progress. Now let's move to another everyday conversation topic, discussing daily habits that improve life. Imagine someone asks you, "What is one habit that helps you stay productive?" Someone might answer, "One habit that helps me stay productive is planning my tasks at the beginning of the day." Another person might say, "I try to focus on one task at a time instead of doing many things at once." Now think about your own habits. What helps you stay productive during the day? Explain your habit in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And say your answer clearly. Very good. Describing habits helps you share useful ideas with others. Now let's practice reacting to encouragement. Imagine a friend tells you, "You're doing a great job improving your English." You might respond by saying, "Thank you. I'm trying to practice consistently." Or, "I appreciate that. I'm glad my practice is helping." Now imagine someone gives you that compliment. How would you respond politely? Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Responding to compliments politely is another important conversational skill. Now let's try another imagination exercise. Imagine you meet someone who asks you, "Why do you think learning English is important?" Someone might say, "Learning English is important because it connects people from different cultures and backgrounds." Another person might say, English is useful because it allows access to information, education, and global communication. Now think about your own perspective. Why do you believe learning English is valuable? Explain your idea in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and speak your answer clearly. Great. Expressing ideas about important topics helps develop deeper communication skills. Now let's continue with another small storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you felt motivated to continue learning English, maybe after understanding a lesson or having a conversation. For example, someone might say, "One day I realized I could understand more English than before, and that moment motivated me to keep studying." Now try creating your own story about motivation. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your story aloud. Very good. Sharing motivation helps you stay positive and inspired. As you continue practicing exercises like these, you may notice that expressing your thoughts in English becomes a little easier each time. At first, forming sentences might require effort, but with repetition, your mind becomes more comfortable organizing ideas in English. This gradual improvement is exactly how language learning works. Step by step, practice by practice. So keep listening carefully, keep repeating sentences, and keep speaking your ideas aloud whenever you can, because every moment you spend practicing English strengthens your ability to communicate clearly and confidently. And as we continue this lesson, we will explore even more real-life conversation topics, more useful expressions, and more speaking practice that will help your English grow naturally and steadily. Now let's continue our intermediate English, or practice by focusing on another very common part of everyday communication, talking about experiences from the past. In many conversations, people naturally share things that happened yesterday, last week, or even earlier in their lives. Being able to explain past experiences clearly helps your English sound more natural and expressive. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, "What did you do yesterday evening?" This question appears very often in friendly conversations. Instead of answering with only one short sentence, intermediate speakers usually add a few details to make the story clearer. For example, someone might say, "Yesterday evening, I spent some time practicing English. I listened to a lesson and repeated several sentences to improve my pronunciation." Another person might say, "Yesterday evening, I relaxed at home. I watched a movie and then talked with a friend online." Notice how these answers include small actions and details. This makes the response feel more conversational. Now think about your own yesterday evening. What did you do? Take a moment and describe it in 2 or 3 sentences. Speak slowly and explain the sequence of events. Excellent. Describing recent experiences is an important skill for everyday conversations. Now let's move to another common question. What did you learn yesterday? People often share small discoveries from their day. Someone might say, "Yesterday I learned a few new English." Expressions that people use in casual conversations. Another person might say, "I learned that practicing speaking every day helps build confidence faster." Now think about something you learned recently, maybe yesterday or a few days ago. Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think carefully and say your answer aloud. Very good. Sharing learning experiences helps conversations become more interesting. Now let's explore another everyday topic, talking about memorable moments. Imagine someone asks you, "What is a moment you remember clearly from last week?" Someone might answer, "One moment I remember from last week is when I finally understood a difficult English lesson. It made me feel proud of my progress." Another person might say, "Last week I had a long conversation with a friend. We talked about many things and laughed a lot." Now think about a moment from last week that you remember clearly. Describe that moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Take a moment, think about the experience, and say your story aloud. Excellent. Talking about memories helps you practice storytelling skills. Now let's practice another useful conversation skill, describing improvements. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you feel that your English has improved recently?" Someone might answer, "Yes. I think my listening has improved. I can understand more words than before." Another learner might say, "I feel that my speaking has improved a little. I can express my thoughts more easily now." Now think about your own progress. What improvement have you noticed in your English? Explain your progress in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment and say your answer clearly. Great. Recognizing improvement helps build confidence and motivation. Now let's move into another common topic, talking about favorite memories. Imagine someone asks you, "What is one of your favorite memories from the past year?" Someone might say, "One of my favorite memories from last year was traveling with my friends. We explored new places and had many interesting conversations." Another person might say, "One of my favorite memories was when I reached a small milestone in my English learning. It felt very rewarding." Now think about one positive memory from the past year. Describe it in 2 or 3 sentences. Take your time and speak your answer aloud. Very nice. Sharing memories makes conversations more personal and meaningful. Now let's practice reacting to someone's story. Imagine a friend tells you, "Last week I finally finished a big project that I had been working on for months." You could respond by saying, "That must feel amazing. Finishing a long project is a great achievement." Or you might say, "Congratulations, all your hard work finally paid off." Now imagine someone told you that story. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your reaction aloud. Excellent. Learning how to respond to stories is an important part of conversation. Now let's continue with another storytelling exercise. Think about a small challenge you faced recently, maybe something that required patience or effort. For example, someone might say, "A few days ago, I struggled to understand a fast English conversation, but I listened to it several times and eventually understood the meaning." Now try telling your own short story about a challenge you experienced recently. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it. And say your story aloud. Very good. Explaining challenges helps you practice describing problems and solutions. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about personal achievements. Imagine someone asks you, What is something you are proud of achieving recently? Someone might answer, recently I became more comfortable speaking English. I can now express my ideas more clearly. Another person might say, I'm proud that I stayed consistent with my English practice for several weeks. Now think about something you feel proud of. Describe your achievement in 2 sentences. Take a moment and speak your answer aloud. Excellent. Talking about achievements helps you share your progress confidently. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine you are talking with someone who is just starting to learn English, and they ask you, what was the most difficult part when you started learning? Someone might answer, at the beginning, the hardest part was understanding spoken English. It sounded very fast. Another learner might say, for me, the hardest part was remembering vocabulary, but practice helped me improve. Now imagine you are answering that question. Explain your experience in 2 sentences. Pause. Think carefully and say your answer aloud. Great. Sharing your experience helps others understand the learning process. Now let's try another small storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you helped someone learn something. Maybe you explained an idea or gave advice. For example, someone might say, recently, a friend asked me how to practice English speaking, and I shared some methods that help me. Now create your own short story about helping someone. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about the situation and say your story aloud. Very good. Storytelling strengthens your ability to organize ideas clearly. As you continue practicing exercises like these, your ability to talk about the past becomes stronger and more natural. At first, telling stories may feel slow or difficult, but with practice, your sentences will become smoother and your confidence will grow. Remember, speaking a language is not about perfect grammar in every sentence. It is about communicating ideas clearly and naturally. So keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep exploring new ways to describe your experiences in English. Because every story you share, every memory you describe, and every sentence you practice helps you move closer to fluent communication. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue exploring more real-life conversation topics, more storytelling practice, and more exercises that will strengthen your English step by step. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by focusing on another very important part of everyday communication, asking questions and continuing conversations. In real life, conversations do not only depend on answering questions, they also depend on asking good questions that keep the conversation moving. When you ask thoughtful questions, the other person feels more comfortable speaking, and the conversation becomes more natural and engaging. Imagine you are talking with someone who says, I started learning a new skill recently. A very natural reaction would be to ask a question that shows interest. For example, Ed, you might ask, that sounds interesting. What skill are you learning? Or you could ask, what made you decide to start learning that? These kinds of questions help the conversation continue naturally. Now imagine someone tells you, I started reading a new book this week. What question could you ask to continue the conversation? Take a moment, think about it, and say your question aloud. Excellent. Learning to ask questions confidently is an important step toward becoming a comfortable English speaker. Now let's explore another situation, talking about daily routines in more detail. Imagine someone asks you, "What part of your day do you enjoy the most?" Someone might answer, "The part of my day I enjoy the most is the evening, because I finally have time to relax and focus on things I enjoy." Another person might say, "I enjoy on the early morning the most. It feels peaceful and gives me time to think before the day becomes busy." Now think about your own day. Which part do you enjoy the most? Describe that moment in 2 sentences and explain why it is special for you. Pause for a moment. Think carefully and speak your answer aloud. Very good. Talking about daily routines helps people understand your lifestyle and habits. Now let's move into another everyday conversation topic, talking about learning from mistakes. When learning a language, mistakes are completely normal, and discussing them can be very helpful. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you usually do when you make a mistake in English?" Someone might say, "When I make a mistake, I try to understand what went wrong and learn from it." Another learner might say, "I usually repeat the correct sentence several times so I can remember it better." Now think about your own reaction to mistakes. What do you usually do when you notice an error in your English? Explain your approach in 2 sentences. Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Understanding mistakes is one of the most powerful ways to improve a language. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine you are meeting someone who asks you, "What helps you stay motivated when learning something difficult?" Someone might answer, "What helps me stay motivated is remembering why I started learning in the first place." Another person might say, "I stay motivated by celebrating small progress and reminding myself that improvement takes time." Now think about your own motivation. What helps you continue learning even when it feels challenging? Describe your motivation in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Great. Discussing motivation helps you express deeper thoughts and emotions. Now let's move to another common conversation topic, talking about favorite ways to spend free time. Imagine someone asks you, "What do you like to do when you have a little free time during the day?" Someone might say, "When I have free time, I like listening to music or watching short videos." Another person might say, "I usually read something interesting or practice English for a few minutes." Now think about your own free moments during the day. What do you usually do during those times? Describe your activity in 2 sentences. Take a moment and say your answer clearly. Very good. Describing small daily habits helps your English sound more natural. Now let's try another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you felt curious about learning something new. For example, someone might say, "A few days ago, I became curious about how people improve their speaking skills. So I started listening to more English conversations." Now try creating your own short story about curiosity. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it. And Xiao, speak your story aloud. Excellent. Curiosity is often the beginning of learning. Now let's practice another everyday communication skill, agreeing and disagreeing politely. Imagine someone says, I think practicing every day is the best way to improve English. You might agree by saying, yes, I agree. Practicing regularly really helps build confidence. Or you might respond with a slightly different opinion. That's true, but I also think listening a lot is very important. Now imagine someone shared that opinion with you. How would you respond? Would you agree or offer a different perspective? Take a moment and say your response aloud. Very good. Expressing agreement or different opinions respectfully is an important conversation skill. Now let's explore another topic. Describing something you enjoy learning about. Imagine someone asks you, what topics do you enjoy learning about the most? Someone might say, I enjoy learning about languages and cultures. It helps me understand how people communicate around the world. Another person might say, I enjoy learning about technology and new ideas because it keeps me now curious and motivated. Now think about your own interests. What topics do you enjoy learning about? Describe your interests in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And speak your answer aloud. Great. Talking about interests makes conversations lively and engaging. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine you are having a conversation with someone who asks you, if you could learn any new skill this year, what would it be? Someone might answer, if I could learn any skill, I would improve my communication skills so I can speak more confidently in different situations. Another person might say, I would like to learn how to speak another language because it would open many opportunities. Now imagine your own answer. Describe the skill you would like to learn in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Expressing dreams and possibilities helps you develop more advanced communication. Now let's finish this section with one more storytelling exercise. Think about a time when learning something new made you feel excited. For example, someone might say, one day I realized I could understand an English conversation without subtitles, and that moment made me feel very excited. Now create your own short story about a moment of excitement while learning. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And speak your story aloud. Very good. Moments of excitement and discovery are powerful parts of the learning journey. As you continue practicing conversations like these, your ability to ask questions, share ideas, and respond naturally will continue to grow. At first, you might need time to think before speaking, but with regular practice, your sentences will come more easily. Remember, fluency develops gradually through patience, repetition, and consistent practice. So keep practicing, keep speaking aloud, and keep expressing your thoughts in English whenever you have the opportunity. Because every conversation you practice, every question you ask, and every idea you express helps your English become stronger and more confident. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue exploring more real-life conversation topics, more storytelling practice, and more exercises that will help you think and speak in English more smoothly. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by focusing on another very natural part of daily conversations, talking about decisions and choices. Every day we make many small decisions. What to do first, what to eat, how to spend our time, and even how to solve small problems. Being able to talk about these decisions helps you explain, or you're thinking clearly in English. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, how do you decide what to do first during the day? This question allows you to explain how you organize your priorities. Someone might say, when I start my day, I usually think about the most important task and focus on that first. After finishing it, I move to smaller tasks. Another person might say, I usually decide what to do first by looking at my schedule. I try to complete the most difficult work when I have the most energy. Notice how both answers explain the reasoning behind the decision. Now think about your own routine. How do you decide what to do first in your day? Take a moment and describe your method in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Excellent. Explaining decisions helps others understand how you think and plan your activities. Now let's move to another very common conversation topic. Talking about choices. Imagine someone asks you, how do you usually choose what to study? Someone might answer, I usually choose topics that I find interesting because it keeps me motivated to continue learning. Another person might say, I choose study topics based on, what I need to improve the most. Sometimes vocabulary, sometimes listening. Now think about your own learning choices. How do you decide what to study when practicing English? Explain your choice in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think carefully and say your answer aloud. Great. Talking about choices helps you express your learning strategies. Now, let's explore another everyday situation, talking about solving problems. Imagine someone asks you, what do you usually do when you don't understand something in English? Someone might say, when I don't understand something, I try listening again and paying attention to the key words. Another learner might say, if I don't understand a sentence, I try looking up the meaning and repeating the sentence slowly. Now think about your own method. What do you do when something in English feels confusing? Describe your strategy in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer clearly. Very good. Explaining how you solve problems shows your learning process. Now let's continue with another everyday conversation topic, talking about learning environments. Imagine someone asks you, where do you usually feel most comfortable studying? Someone might answer, I feel most comfortable studying at my desk because it is quiet and organized. Another person might say, I enjoy studying near a window where there is natural light. It helps me feel more relaxed. Now think about your own study environment. Where do you usually feel comfortable learning? Describe that place in 2 sentences. Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Describing environments helps listeners visualize your experiences. Now let's practice another storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you made a good decision about learning English. Maybe you started practicing regularly or discovered a helpful method. For example, someone might say, "One day I decided to practice English for a few minutes every day instead of studying only once a week. And that decision helped me improve faster." Now try creating your own short story about a good learning decision. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Very good. Storytelling helps you explain ideas clearly and confidently. Now let's move into another common conversation situation. Expressing curiosity. Imagine someone asks you, "What is something you are curious to learn more about?" Someone might answer, "I'm curious to learn more about different cultures and languages because it helps me understand people better." Another person might say, "I'm curious about new technology and how it changes the way we communicate." Now think about your own curiosity. What topic or skill would you like to learn more about? Explain your interest in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Great. Expressing curiosity keeps conversations lively and engaging. Now let's practice reacting to someone's experience. Imagine a friend tells you, "I finally started speaking English with people online." You might respond by saying, "That's a great step. Practicing with real people helps a lot." Or you might say, "That sounds exciting. It must be helping you gain confidence." Now imagine someone told you that story. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your reaction aloud. Excellent. Reacting naturally is an essential part of communication. Now let's try another imagination exercise. Imagine someone asks you, "What is one small thing you do every day that helps you improve?" Someone might answer, "One small thing I do every day is listening to English for a few minutes. It keeps my mind connected to the language." Another person might say, "I try to learn at least one new word every day and use it in a sentence." Now think about your own daily habit. What small action helps you improve your English? Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about your habit and say your answer clearly. Excellent. Recognizing small habits helps build strong learning routines. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you realized that learning English was becoming easier for you. For example, someone might say, "One day, I noticed that I could understand most of a conversation without translating every word, and that made me feel very encouraged." Now try telling your own story about noticing improvement. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it and focus on that first. After finishing it, I move to smaller tasks. Another person might say, "I usually decide what to do first by looking at my schedule. I try to complete the most difficult work when I have the most energy." Notice how both answers explain the reasoning behind the decision. Now think about your own routine. How do you decide what to do first in your day? Take a moment and describe your method in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Excellent. Explaining decisions helps others understand how you think and plan your activities. Now let's move to another very common conversation topic. Talking about choices. Imagine someone asks you, how do you usually choose what to study? Someone might answer, I usually choose topics that I find interesting because it keeps me motivated to continue learning. Another person might say, I choose study topics based on, what I need to improve the most. Sometimes vocabulary, sometimes listening. Now think about your own learning choices. How do you decide what to study when practicing English? Explain your choice in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think carefully and say your answer aloud. Great. Talking about choices helps you express your learning strategies. Now, let's explore another everyday situation. Talking about solving problems. Imagine someone asks you, what do you usually do when you don't understand something in English? Someone might say, when I don't understand something, I try listening again and paying attention to the key words. Another learner might say, if I don't understand a sentence, I try looking up the meaning and repeating the sentence slowly. Now think about your own method. What do you do when something in English feels confusing? Describe your strategy in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer clearly. Very good. Explaining how you solve problems shows your learning process. Now let's continue with another everyday conversation topic, talking about learning environments. Imagine someone asks you, where do you usually feel most comfortable studying? Someone might answer, I feel most comfortable studying at my desk because it is quiet and organized. Another person might say, I enjoy studying near a window where there is natural light. It helps me feel more relaxed. Now think about your own study environment. Where do you usually feel comfortable learning? Describe that place in 2 sentences. Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Describing environments helps listeners visualize your experiences. Now let's practice another storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you made a good decision about learning English. Maybe you started practicing regularly or discovered a helpful method. For example, someone might say, one day I decided to practice English for a few minutes every day instead of studying only once a week. And that decision helped me improve faster. Now try creating your own short story about a good learning decision. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Very good. Storytelling helps you explain ideas clearly and confidently. Now let's move into another common conversation situation. Expressing curiosity. Imagine someone asks you, what is something you are curious to learn more about? Someone might answer, I'm curious to learn more about different cultures and languages because it helps me understand people better. Another person might say, I'm curious about new technology and how it changes the way we communicate. Now think about your own curiosity. What topic or skill would you like to learn more about? Explain your interest in 2 sentences. Pause. Think carefully and say your answer aloud. Great. Expressing curiosity keeps conversations lively and engaging. Now let's practice reacting to someone's experience. Imagine a friend tells you, I finally started speaking English with people online. You might respond by saying, that's a great step. Practicing with real people helps a lot. Or you might say, That sounds exciting. It must be helping you gain confidence. Now imagine someone told you that story. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your reaction aloud. Excellent. Reacting naturally is an essential part of communication. Now let's try another imagination exercise. Imagine someone asks you, what is one small thing you do every day that helps you improve? Someone might answer, one small thing I do every day is listening to English for a few minutes. It keeps my mind connected to the language. Another person might say, I try to learn at least one new word every day and use it in a sentence. Now think about your own daily habit. What small action helps you improve your English? Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about your habit and say your answer clearly. Excellent. Recognizing small habits helps build strong learning routines. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you realized that learning English was becoming easier for you. For example, someone might say, one day, I noticed that I could understand most of a conversation without translating every word, and that made me feel very encouraged. Now try telling your own story about noticing improvement. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Very good. Recognizing improvement helps build confidence and motivation. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic. Talking about personal strengths. Imagine someone asks you, what do you think is your strongest skill when learning English? Someone might answer, I think my strongest skill is listening because I spend a lot of time practicing it. Another learner might say, my strongest skill might be reading because I enjoy understanding written ideas. Now think about your own strengths. What part of learning English feels easiest for you? Describe your strength in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Talking about strengths helps you understand your progress better. As you continue practicing conversations like these, your ability to express ideas about decisions, habits, and experiences becomes stronger. At the beginning of learning English, it is common to use only simple answers, but with practice, you begin explaining reasons, sharing stories, and expressing deeper thoughts. That is exactly what intermediate English practice is designed to develop. So keep listening carefully, keep speaking aloud, and keep practicing these conversation exercises with patience. Because every sentence you practice strengthens your confidence and fluency. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue exploring more daily life topics, more natural conversations, and more speaking exercises that will help you communicate in English more smoothly and comfortably. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by exploring another important area of everyday conversation. Talking about opinions and personal perspectives. In many real-life situations, people share their thoughts about ideas, habits, experiences, and everyday topics. Being able to explain your opinion clearly helps you participate more confidently in conversations. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, what do you think is the best way to improve a language? This type of question invites you to share your personal experience and perspective. Someone might answer, I think the best way to improve a language is by practicing consistently. Even a small amount of practice every day can make a big difference. Another person might say, in my opinion, listening is one of the most important skills because understanding spoken language helps you communicate naturally. Notice how both answers begin with a clear opinion and then explain the reason behind it. Now think about your own perspective. What do you think is one of the best ways to improve English? Take a moment and explain your opinion in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Excellent. Expressing opinions allows you to share ideas more confidently. Now let's explore another common conversation situation, talking about learning preferences. Imagine someone asks you, do you prefer learning alone or with other people? Someone might say, I prefer learning alone because it allows me to focus without distractions. Another person might answer, I enjoy learning with others because conversations help me practice. Speaking. Now think about your own preference. Do you prefer studying alone or with others? Explain your preference in 2 sentences and include a reason. Pause for a moment. Think about it and say your answer aloud. Very good. Talking about preferences helps you describe your personality and habits. Now let's continue with another everyday topic, talking about inspiration. Sometimes people ask questions like, what inspires you to keep learning? Someone might answer, what inspires me is the idea that learning a language opens many doors for communication and opportunity. Another learner might say, I feel inspired when I see my progress. Even small improvements motivate me to continue practicing. Now think about your own inspiration. What motivates you to continue improving your English? Describe your inspiration in 2 sentences. Pause. Think carefully and speak your answer aloud. Great. Sharing inspiration helps others understand your motivation. Now let's practice another everyday conversation topic, talking about personal growth. Imagine someone asks you, how has learning English changed your life? Someone might answer, learning English has helped me access more information and communicate with people from different backgrounds. Another person might say, English learning has given me more confidence to explore new opportunities and ideas. Now think about your own experience. How has learning English influenced your life so far? Describe your experience in 2 sentences. Take a moment and say your answer clearly. Excellent. Talking about personal growth helps you express deeper thoughts and experiences. Now let's try another storytelling. You exercise. Think about a moment when you felt proud of yourself while learning English. For example, someone might say, one day I realized that I could follow a full English conversation without translating every word. And that moment made me feel proud of my progress. Now create your own short story about a moment of pride in your learning journey. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Very good. Storytelling helps you organize ideas and express emotions naturally. Now let's move into another useful communication skill, expressing agreement and support. Imagine a friend tells you, I think practicing speaking every day is the best way to improve fluency. You might respond by saying, yes, I agree. Regular speaking practice really builds confidence. Or you might say, that makes sense. Daily practice helps the brain become familiar with the language. Now imagine someone shared that idea with you. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Supporting someone's idea helps maintain positive conversations. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about learning strategies. Imagine someone asks you, what strategy helps you learn English faster? Someone might answer, one strategy that helps me is repeating sentences aloud because it improves both memory and pronunciation. Another person might say, listening to English regularly helps me become familiar with natural speech patterns. Now think about your own strategy. What method helps you learn more effectively? Describe your strategy in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and speak your answer clearly. Great. Explaining strategies allows you to share helpful ideas with others. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine you meet someone who asks you, if you could give one piece of advice to new English learners, what would it be? Someone might answer, my advice would be to practice consistently and not be afraid of making mistakes. Another learner might say, I would encourage them to listen to English as often as possible and stay curious. Now imagine you are giving advice to that learner. Explain your suggestion in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it. And say your answer aloud. Excellent. Giving advice strengthens your ability to express helpful ideas clearly. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when someone encouraged you in your learning journey. For example, someone might say, a friend once told me that my English had improved a lot. Hearing that made me feel motivated to continue practicing. Now try creating your own short story about encouragement. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about the situation and speak your story aloud. Very good. Encouragement plays an important role in learning. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about future possibilities. Imagine someone asks you, where would you like your English skills to take you in the future? Someone might answer, in the future, I hope my English skills will allow me to travel and communicate easily with people from different cultures. Another person might say, I hope my English will help me access more educational and professional opportunities. Now think about your own hopes for the future. Describe your goal in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think carefully and speak your answer aloud. Excellent. Expressing future hopes helps you practice talking about dreams and possibilities. Now let's finish this section with one more storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when learning English made you feel more confident. For example, someone might say, one day I spoke English with someone I had never met before, and I realized I could communicate successfully. Now create your own short story about a moment of confidence. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And say your story aloud. Very good. Confidence grows through practice and experience. As you continue practicing conversations like these, you will notice that expressing your opinions and ideas becomes easier. Your sentences will become smoother, your thoughts will become clearer, and your confidence will grow step by step. Remember, learning a language is a journey. Every sentence you practice is a step forward, so keep listening. Keep speaking, and keep exploring new ways to express yourself in English, because every moment you spend practicing brings you closer to communicating naturally and confidently. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue practicing more everyday conversations and storytelling exercises that will help you strengthen your English even further. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by focusing on another very natural part of daily communication: describing daily situations and explaining small events from your life. In real conversations, people often talk about simple moments: what happened during their day, what they noticed, or how they reacted to something. These small explanations help conversations feel relaxed and natural. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, "Did anything interesting happen today?" Even if your day felt ordinary, you can still describe a small event. For example, someone might say, "Today I had an interesting conversation with a friend about learning languages. We shared some ideas that helped me think differently about practice." Another person might say, "Nothing unusual happened today, but I spent some time improving my English and that felt productive." Notice how both answers include a small explanation. This makes the response feel complete. Now think about your own day. Did anything interesting happen today? Take a moment and describe it in 2 sentences. Speak clearly and naturally. Excellent. Describing small events helps you become more comfortable speaking about everyday experiences. Now let's move into another very common topic, talking about how you spend quiet moments during the day. Sometimes people ask questions like, "What do you usually do when you have a few quiet minutes?" Someone might answer, "When I have a few quiet minutes, I like listening to English or reviewing some vocabulary." Another person might say, "I usually take a short break, look outside the window, and relax for a moment." Now think about your own quiet moments. What do you usually do during those times? Describe your activity in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it, and say your answer aloud. Very good. Describing small habits helps you build natural conversation skills. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about learning progress. Imagine someone asks you, "What part of English feels easier for you now than before?" Someone might say, "Listening feels easier for me now because I practice it regularly." Another learner might say, "Speaking feels a little easier now because I try to form sentences more often." Now think about your own improvement. What part of English feels easier than before? Explain your progress in 2 sentences. Take a moment and speak your answer clearly. Excellent. Recognizing improvement builds confidence. Now let's practice another storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you felt surprised by your English ability. Maybe you understood something you didn't expect. For example, someone might say, One day, I watched a short video in English and realized I could understand most of it. That surprised me and encouraged me to keep learning. Now try creating your own short story about a surprising moment in your learning journey. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your story aloud. Very good. Storytelling strengthens your ability to describe experiences naturally. Now let's move into another conversation topic, talking about daily challenges. Imagine someone asks you, what is something that sometimes makes your day difficult? Someone might say, sometimes my day becomes difficult when I have too many tasks at the same time. Another person might say, a difficult part of my day can be staying focused when I feel tired. Now think about your own daily challenges. What sometimes makes your day difficult? Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and speak your answer aloud. Excellent. Explaining challenges helps others understand your experiences. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about ways to stay positive. Imagine someone asks you, what helps you stay positive during a difficult day? Someone might answer, what helps me stay positive is remembering that challenges are temporary. Another person might say, taking a short break and focusing on something relaxing helps me feel better. Now think about your own way of staying positive. What helps you when your day feels difficult? Explain your method in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer clearly. Great. Talking about positivity helps conversations become supportive and encouraging. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine someone asks you, what do you usually do when you feel proud of your progress? Someone might say, when I feel proud of my progress, I take a moment to reflect and appreciate the effort I made. Another learner might say, I usually celebrate small progress by continuing my practice with more confidence. Now think about your own reaction. What do you do when you notice improvement in your learning? Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Very good. Reflecting on progress helps strengthen motivation. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you helped someone understand something. Maybe you explained an idea or shared advice. For example, someone might say, recently a friend asked me how to practice English speaking, and I shared some simple exercises that helped me. Now create your own short story about helping someone. Describe the moment in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Excellent. Storytelling helps build confidence and clarity. Now let's explore another everyday topic, talking about curiosity. Imagine someone asks you, what makes you curious to learn more? Someone might answer, I feel curious when I discover something I don't fully understand. It makes me want to explore more. Another person might say, learning about different cultures and languages makes me curious to know more about the world. Now think about your own curiosity. What kinds of things make you curious to learn more? Explain your interest in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer clearly. Great. Curiosity often leads to new learning experiences. Now let's practice reacting to encouragement. Imagine someone tells you you're improving your English every day. You might respond by saying, "Thank you. I'm trying to practice consistently." Or you might say, "I appreciate that. I'm glad my efforts are helping." Now imagine someone gave you that encouragement. How would you respond politely? Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Very good. Responding to encouragement politely helps conversations remain positive. Now let's finish this section with one more storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you felt confident speaking English. For example, someone might say, "One day I spoke English during a conversation and realized I didn't feel nervous anymore. That moment showed me how much I had improved." Now create your own short story about a confident moment. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And say your story aloud. Excellent. Confidence grows through practice and experience. As you continue practicing conversations like these, describing events, feelings, and experiences becomes easier. Your sentences become clearer. Your ideas flow more naturally, and your confidence grows step by step. Remember, language learning is a process. Every conversation you practice adds to your progress. So keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep expressing your thoughts in English whenever you have the opportunity. Because every small effort brings you closer to fluent communication. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue practicing more real-life conversations and speaking exercises that will strengthen your English even further. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by exploring another very natural part of everyday conversations, talking about daily observations. In real life, people often share things they noticed during their day, something they saw, something they heard, or something that made them think about an idea. These small observations are very common in conversations because they help people connect with each other and share experiences. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, "Did you notice anything interesting today?" This question invites you to think about your surroundings and reflect on something small but meaningful. For example, someone might say, "Today I noticed how peaceful the morning felt. The air was quiet and it helped me start the day calmly." Another person might say, "I noticed that when I practiced English slowly and carefully, and I understood the sentences much better." Now think about your own day. Did you notice something interesting or different? Take a moment and describe that observation in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Excellent. Sharing observations helps you express thoughts about your environment and experiences. Now let's move into another common conversation topic, talking about learning routines. Imagine someone asks you, "When do you feel most focused while learning?" Someone might answer, "I feel most focused in the morning when my mind feels fresh and clear." Another person might say, "I usually feel focused late in the evening when everything around me becomes quiet." Now think about your own experience. When do you feel most focused while learning something new? Describe that moment in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think, do carefully, and say your answer aloud. Very good. Talking about focus and learning habits helps you understand your own study patterns. Now let's practice another storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you suddenly understood something that had been difficult before. For example, someone might say, "One day I listened to a conversation in English and realized that I could understand almost every sentence. It surprised me and made me feel proud." Now create your own short story about a moment of understanding. Describe the situation in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your story aloud. Excellent. Moments of understanding are very important in language learning. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about how people learn best. Imagine someone asks you, "What kind of practice helps you remember things better?" Someone might answer, "Practicing by repeating sentences aloud helps me remember vocabulary and pronunciation." Another learner might say, "Writing sentences with new words helps me remember them more easily." Now think about your own learning style. What kind of practice helps you remember things better? Explain your method in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer clearly. Great. Sharing learning strategies helps learners exchange helpful ideas. Now let's move into another conversation situation, talking about daily inspiration. Imagine someone asks you, "What inspires you during your learning journey?" Someone might answer, "What inspires me is seeing my progress little by little. Every improvement motivates me to continue." Another person might say, "Listening to people speak English fluently inspires me to keep practicing." Now think about your own inspiration. What gives you motivation to continue learning? Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your answer aloud. Excellent. Inspiration helps learners remain committed to their goals. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine someone asks you, "If you could travel anywhere to practice English, where would you go?" Someone might say, "I would like to travel to a place where English is spoken daily so I could practice naturally with people." Another person might say, "I would visit a city where people from many cultures communicate in English." Now imagine your own answer. Where would you go and why? Describe your idea in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Very good. Imagination exercises help you practice expressing possibilities. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when someone encouraged you during your learning journey. For example, someone might say, "One day, a teacher told me that my pronunciation had improved. Hearing that made me feel confident and motivated." Now create your own short story about encouragement. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Excellent. Encouragement can make a big difference in motivation. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about the importance of patience. Imagine someone asks you, "Why do you think patience is important when learning a language?" Someone might answer, "Patience is important because language learning takes time and consistent effort." Another person might say, "Without patience, it becomes easy to feel discouraged during difficult moments." Now think about your own perspective. Why do you think patience matters in learning? Explain your idea in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about it and say your answer clearly. Great. Sharing ideas about learning helps you develop deeper communication. Now let's practice reacting to someone's progress. Imagine a friend tells you, "I can finally understand English podcasts better now." You might respond by saying, "That's wonderful. Your practice is clearly paying off." Or you might say, "That's great progress. Keep going." Now imagine someone told you that story. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your reaction aloud. Excellent. Reacting positively helps maintain supportive conversations. Now let's finish this section with one more storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when learning English made you feel confident about your future. For example, someone might say, "One day I realized that learning English would allow me to connect with people around the world, and that thought made me feel hopeful." Now create your own short story about a moment of confidence or hope. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your story aloud. Very good. Confidence grows when you recognize the value of your learning journey. As you continue practicing conversations like these, sharing observations, ideas, now when experiences becomes more natural, your sentences become smoother, your thoughts become clearer, and your confidence grows step by step. Remember, every small effort you make today contributes to your improvement tomorrow. So keep listening, keep speaking, and keep practicing your English regularly. Because every sentence you speak helps you move closer to communicating clearly, naturally, and confidently. And with continued practice, English will become not just a subject you study, but a language you can truly use to express your thoughts and connect with others. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by exploring another important part of real conversations, talking about reflections and lessons from everyday life. In daily communication, or people often think about what they learned from their experiences. Sometimes they reflect on something that happened during the day, a mistake they made, or something that helped them grow. Being able to express these reflections clearly helps your English sound thoughtful and natural. Imagine someone asks you a question like, "What is something useful you learned this week?" This question encourages you to reflect on your experiences and explain what you discovered. Someone might answer, "This week, I learned that practicing English regularly is more effective than studying for long hours only once in a while." Another person might say, "I realize that listening carefully before speaking helps me understand conversations better." Now think about your own week. What is something useful you learned recently? Take a moment and describe it in 2 sentences. Speak clearly and naturally. Excellent. Reflecting on what you learn helps strengthen both your thinking and your communication. Now, let's move into another common conversation topic, talking about daily improvements. Imagine someone asks you, "What small improvement have you noticed in yourself recently?" Someone might answer, "Recently, I noticed that I can understand English conversations a little more easily." Another person might say, "I realized that my confidence has improved when speaking English." Now think about your own improvement. What small change have you noticed in your progress? Explain your improvement in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think carefully and say your answer aloud. Very good. Recognizing improvement builds motivation and confidence. Now let's practice another storytelling exercise. Think about a time when you learned something important from a mistake. For example, someone might say, "One day I mispronounced a word during a sabjabe conversation, but after practicing it several times, I remembered the correct pronunciation." Now create your own short story about learning from a mistake. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And say your story aloud. Excellent. Mistakes are powerful teachers in the learning process. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic. Talking about daily learning moments. Imagine someone asks you, "When do you usually feel that you learned something new?" Someone might answer, "I usually feel that I learned something new when I understand a sentence that used to confuse me." Another person might say, "I feel that I learned something when I can use a new word naturally in a sentence." Now think about your own learning moments. When do you realize that you have learned something new? Describe that moment in 2 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And speak your answer clearly. Great. Identifying learning moments helps you stay aware of your progress. Now let's move into another conversation situation, talking about personal habits that support learning. Imagine someone asks you, "What habit helps you stay consistent in your learning?" Someone might say, "One habit that helps me stay consistent is setting aside a small amount of time every day to practice." Another person might say, "I stay consistent by reviewing what I learned regularly." Now think about your own habits. What habit helps you continue learning even on busy days? Explain your habit in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Talking about habits helps you understand what works best for you. Now let's practice another imagination exercise. Imagine someone asks you, "If you or could give advice to your past self when you first started learning English, what would you say?" Someone might answer, "I would tell my past self not to worry about mistakes and to keep practicing every day." Another learner might say, "I would advise myself to be patient and enjoy the learning process." Now imagine your own answer. What advice would you give to your past self? Describe it in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it. And say your answer aloud. Very good. Reflection helps deepen your understanding of the learning journey. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when practicing English felt enjoyable rather than difficult. For example, someone might say, "One evening I listened to an English lesson and realized I was enjoying the process instead of worrying about mistakes." Now create your own short story about an enjoyable learning moment. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it. And speak your story aloud. Excellent. Enjoyment is an important part of learning successfully. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about staying motivated during challenges. Imagine someone asks you, What do you do when learning feels difficult? Someone might answer, when learning feels difficult, I remind myself why I started and take small steps forward. Another person might say, I take a short break and then return to practice with a fresh mind. Now think about your own approach. What helps you continue learning when it feels challenging? Explain your method in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and say your answer clearly. Great. Discussing challenges and solutions helps you communicate honestly. Now let's practice reacting to someone's reflection. Imagine a friend tells you, I realize that patience is very important when learning a language. You might respond by saying, that's very true. Patience helps you stay focused on long-term progress. Or you might say, I agree. Language learning takes time and consistent effort. Now imagine someone shared that reflection with you. How would you respond? Take a moment and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Responding thoughtfully keeps conversations meaningful. Now let's finish this section with one more storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you realized that learning English was becoming part of your daily life. For example, someone might say, one day, I noticed that I was thinking about English words during my daily activities, and that made me realize how much I had progressed. Now create your own short story about a moment of realization. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Very good. Moments of realization help learners appreciate their progress. As you continue practicing conversations like these, your ability to reflect, explain experiences, and express ideas becomes stronger. Your sentences will become clearer. Your thoughts will flow more naturally, and your confidence will continue to grow. Remember, learning a language is not only about memorizing words. It is about expressing your experiences, ideas, and reflections clearly. So keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep exploring new ways to express yourself in English. Because every reflection you share and every sentence you practice brings you closer to fluent communication. And in the next part of this lesson, we will continue exploring more conversation exercises that will help strengthen your English skills even further. Now let's continue our intermediate English practice by focusing on another natural part of communication, describing thoughts that come to your mind during normal daily life. In real conversations, people often share small ideas that appear while they are doing ordinary activities. Sometimes these thoughts are simple reflections. Sometimes they are plans. And sometimes they are questions about the future. Being able to express these thoughts in English helps your speaking feel natural and spontaneous. Imagine someone asks you a simple question like, what do you usually think about when you are walking or traveling somewhere? This type of question appears in relaxed conversations because people often think about many things during quiet moments. Someone might answer, when I'm walking somewhere, I often think about the things I need to finish during the day. It helps me organize my thoughts. Another person might say, sometimes when I'm walking, I think about what I learned recently and how I can use it in real conversations. Now think about your own quiet moments. When you are walking somewhere or sitting quietly, What kinds of thoughts usually appear in your mind? Take a moment and describe your thoughts in 2 sentences. Speak slowly and clearly. Very good. Describing everyday thoughts helps you practice expressing ideas naturally. Now let's explore another very common topic, talking about small decisions that happen during the day. Imagine someone asks you, "How do you decide when it is time to take a break?" Someone might answer, "I usually decide to take a break when I feel my concentration becoming weaker." Another person might say, "When I notice that I'm feeling tired, I take a short break so I can return with more energy." Now think about your own habits. How do you know when it is time to pause and rest? Describe your decision in 2 sentences. Pause for a moment, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Talking about small decisions helps your English become more practical for everyday use. Now let's continue with another everyday situation, describing moments when you feel calm and focused. Imagine someone asks you, "When do you usually feel the most calm during your day?" Someone might answer, "I usually feel calm early in the morning before the day becomes busy." Another person might say, "I feel calm in the evening when I finally have time to relax and think quietly." Now think about your own day. When do you feel the most peaceful or focused? Describe that moment in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and speak your answer clearly. Very good. Describing feelings helps you communicate emotions naturally. Now, let's practice another storytelling exercise. Think about a moment when you realized that your practice was helping you improve. For example, someone might say, "One day I noticed that I could understand a longer English conversation without difficulty. That moment showed me that my practice was working." Now create your own short story about noticing improvement. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause, think about it, and speak your story aloud. Excellent. Recognizing improvement helps you stay motivated. Now let's explore another everyday conversation topic, talking about how learning changes the way we think. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you think learning English has changed the way you think about communication?" Someone might answer, "Yes, learning English has helped me think more carefully about how I express ideas." Another person might say, "Learning English has made me more curious about how people from different cultures communicate." Now think about your own experience. Has learning English changed the way you think or communicate? Explain your thoughts in 2 sentences. Pause, think carefully, and say your answer aloud. Great. Reflecting on learning experiences helps deepen your understanding. Now let's move into another imagination exercise. Imagine someone asks you, "If you could spend 1 full day practicing English in the best possible way, what would you do?" Someone might answer, "I would start the day by listening to conversations, then practice speaking, and later review new vocabulary." Another learner might say, "I would spend the day reading, listening, and having conversations so I could practice different skills." Now imagine your own ideal practice day. Describe what you would do in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause. Think about it, and say your answer aloud. Excellent. Imagination exercises help you practice future ideas naturally. Now let's continue with another storytelling practice. Think about a moment when you realized that learning English was opening new possibilities for you. For example, someone might say, "One day I realized that learning English would allow me to connect with people around the world. That thought made me feel excited about the future." Now create your own short story about realizing the value of English. Describe the experience in 2 or 3 sentences. Pause for a moment. Think about it. And speak your story aloud. Very good. Moments like these help. Learners stay inspired. Now let's explore another everyday topic. Talking about what you hope to continue improving. Imagine someone asks you, "What part of English do you want to keep improving in the future?" Someone might answer, "I want to keep improving my speaking so I can communicate more naturally." Another learner might say, "I would like to improve my listening skills so I can understand conversations more easily." Now think about your own goal. What part of English would you like to improve next? Describe your goal in 2 sentences. Pause, think about it, and speak your answer clearly. Excellent. Setting goals helps maintain progress and motivation. Now let's practice one final storytelling exercise. Think about the entire journey you have experienced while learning English. For example, someone might say, "When I first started learning English, it felt difficult to form even simple sentences. But with practice and patience, speaking became easier." Now create your own short reflection about your learning journey. Describe the experience in 3 sentences. Pause. Think about the progress you have made and say your story aloud. Very good. Reflecting on your journey helps you appreciate how far you have come. As you continue practicing English every day, you will notice that your thoughts begin to form naturally in the language. Conversations will feel easier, expressing ideas will feel smoother, and your confidence will continue to grow little by little. Every sentence you speak, every idea you express, and every moment you spend practicing helps strengthen your ability to communicate clearly and naturally in English. Thank you so much for spending your time practicing English with me today. I truly hope this lesson helped you feel more comfortable listening, thinking, and speaking in English. Remember that improving a language is not about being perfect. It is about practicing regularly and allowing yourself to grow step by step. If some parts felt difficult, that is completely normal. Learning a language takes patience and consistency. The most important thing is to keep showing up and practicing. Even a few minutes every day can create real progress over time. You can come back to this lesson whenever you want. Listen again, repeat the sentences, and practice answering the questions aloud. Each time you practice, your confidence and fluency will continue to grow. Keep believing in your ability to improve. Keep listening carefully. Keep speaking whenever you have the chance. And most importantly, enjoy the learning journey. I'll see you again in the next English practice lesson.